Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Today we will continue our classes on the tenses. Before we had mentioned that there are 12 tenses in the English language. So far we have covered 3. So we've covered the present perfect tense, the present continuous tense, and the present simple tense. Today's class we will be focusing on the past simple tense.
hore waxaynu u soo xusnay Englishku inuu leeyahay 12 tenses oo asaasi ah. Casharkeennii hore waxaynu ku soo qaadanay present perfect tense, present simple tense iyo present continuous tense. Maanta waxaynu dhiganaynaa past simple tense.
So today's class is a little bit different. We will be changing from present into past. And just like every other tense that we covered, we will be going through 3 different categories.
Tense kasta waxaynu u kala jabinaynaa 3 qaybood.
The first category, we will be talking about the usage. So when we want to use this tense, what are some examples? How do we use it? This will be the first category that we cover. The second category we will cover, just like the previous classes, will have to do with signal words. So when we are using the past simple tense, there are specific keywords that help us create sentences and to speak in the past simple tense. So we will go over some of those keywords or signal words in the second category. The third category, we will be going over the form or the structure or the format. So when we actually make a sentence in past simple tense, we have to follow a specific formula, just like how we have for the other tenses. So the structure, the format, the form, the formula, however you want to call it, we will be dealing with in category number 3.
qaybta koowaad waxaynu ku qaadanaynaa usage-ka oo ah xaaladda aynu u isticmaalayno ama goorta ay ku habboon tahay inaan isticmaalno. qaybta labaad waxaynu ku faahfaahinaynaa keywords-ka oo ah kelmaddan ku habboon in lagu sameeyo sentence-ka. qaybta saddexaad waxaynu ka fargaranaynaa ama aynu dhiganaynaa format-ka iyo form-ka, habka ay u dhacayso kelmaddan iyo sida loo sameynayo.
The first category that we will cover, like I had mentioned, is the usages. So the past simple tense, there are certain situations where you will use it. In fact, the past simple tense, it's not used in a lot of situations. In fact, there are only 2 situations where it is actually used. The past simple tense, when you want to talk about something that finished in the past. So for example, you met somebody new, but it was a week ago or a month ago. So you'll say, I met him last week. You're speaking in the past simple tense. So when you want to talk about something that finished in the past, you will use the past simple tense.
qaybta koowaad waa usage. xaaladda aynu isticmaalaynaa maxaa ay tahay? xaaladda aynu isticmaalaynaa waxa ay tahay marka aynu ka hadlayno ficil dhacay oo dhamaaday. tusaale ahaan waxa aan la kulmay weekii hore.
Another example is when you want to talk about a series of actions that you've completed in the past. So a number of things next to each other that you completed, that you did, but it was in the past. So for example, today I woke up. When I woke up, I had some breakfast. After I had the breakfast, I then went to school. So if you were to say that in a sentence, you could say, I woke up, had breakfast, and went to school. So this is an example of how you will use it when you want to talk about a series of actions, and it's actually only in those 2 situations. When you want to talk about something that you've done in the past, and also when you want to talk about a few things that happened concurrently or in a series in the past. So you did a few things at once. You ate breakfast, you woke up, you ate breakfast, and you went to school.
xaaladda labaad waxaad u isticmaalaysaa marka aad ka hadlaysid dhowr shay oo aad qabatay kuwaas oo isdaba socda. Tusaale ahaan, waan toosay, waan quraacday, kadib waxa aan u baxay iskuulka. Past simple tense isticmaalkiisu waa labadan xaaladood.
So now when you want to communicate that, when you want to speak in past simple tense, what type of words will you use? So we will talk about it now in category number 2, signal words or keywords. What type of words will we use in those situations? So we want to talk about something that happened in the past, or we want to talk about something that has a series of actions that happened in the past. So what kind of words will we use?
qaybta labaad waa keywords. Keywords waxa weeyaan kelmadda ku habboon inaad ku hadashid marka aad isticmaalaysid tense-kan. Hadda waxaynu xusaynaa tusaalayaal ka mid ah keywords-ka.
You can use the word, the keyword or the signal word, yesterday. So, yesterday I woke up, had breakfast, and went to school. So you're illustrating something that happened in the past. You can use the word last week, or you can use the word last month. Or you can use the word last month. Or you can use the word when you want to specifically talk about maybe a holiday or an event or a celebration. So last Eid. Or you can talk about the actual year in 2017. Or you can just use the word ago, a while ago. So these are all signal or keywords that you will see or that you will use when you are speaking in the past simple tense. Category number 1, we spoke about usage. So the two situations where we will use the past simple tense. Category number 2, we spoke about the keywords, the signal words we will use when we want to express ourselves in those situations. Category number 3, now we will actually break down how to create a sentence in the past simple tense. So just like our last classes, every form or every format is broken up into 2 categories. The first category is positive, negative, or a question.
qaybta saddexaad waxa weeyaan format, qaab dhismeedka loo dhisayo sentence-ka. Tense-kan formatkiisa waxaa loo kala jebiyaa 2 qaybood. qaybta koowaad waxa weeyaan qaab dhismeedka sentence-ka. qaab dhismeedku waxa uu u sii kala jabaa 3 qaybood oo yaryar: positive, negative, iyo question.
So positive is when you're doing something, when you're talking about something that you did in the past simple tense. Or something that happened. I was sick yesterday. This is positive. When you want to speak negative, when you want to make it negative, you're negating that specific thing. You're saying that it did not happen. So you're saying, I wasn't sick yesterday. Positive, you were sick, I was sick yesterday. Negative, I wasn't sick yesterday. Now, when you have a question is just when you want to ask something. There will be specific ways to do that. So for example, you want to tell somebody, were you sick yesterday? Yes, I was sick yesterday. This is a question when you want to ask something.
Positive waxaad isticmaalaysaa marka aad ka hadlaysid xaalad dhacday. Tusaale ahaan, shalay waa aan xanuunsanayay. Negative waa diidmo. Waxa aad odhanaysaa shalay toole ma aan xanuunsanaynin. Question, su'aal, shalay miya aad xanuunsanaysay.
So the first category will always compose of those 3 things: a positive sentence, a negative sentence, or a question. For every single tense, it's like this. The second category is made up of 2 subcategories that you will see on the screen. The first is the famous type of verb to be that we covered in our beginner classes.
qaybta labaad waa formula qaacido qaacidadaas oo u sii kala baxaysa laba qaybood oo yaryar qaybta koobaad waxa weeyaan verbs to be.
So that subcategory of to be, it can be made up of different types of specific subjects. So we see here the calculation or the formula that we will be working with for to be. You see, the first thing that is mentioned is the subject. So what are we talking about? I, he, she, it, they, we, you. This is the subject. Whenever you are talking about yourself or somebody else, you use the pronouns I, he, she, or it. Always you will have to follow it up with the word was. So as you see on the screen here, anytime you use I, he, she, or it, in the past simple tense, you will have to include was afterwards. So for example, I said I was sick yesterday. So we see in the formula it says subject, and then after you will say was, or you will say were. So when will you say were? You will say were whenever you're using the words they, we, or you. Whenever you're using the words they, or we, or you will follow it up with were. So for example, they were sick last week. We can't say they was sick last week. So the words I, he, she, and it will always be followed up with was. The words they, we, and you will always be followed up with were in the past simple tense. So if we look at the examples here, it says I, and then you use the word was, because I always has to be followed up with was, sick yesterday. Whereas we see in the second example, it says they, and whenever we use the word they, as you can see on the screen, it will be followed up with were, sick last week. This is the positive sentence.
Positive sentence. Subject marka uu yahay I, he, she, it, waxa aad ku daraysaa was. Subject marka uu yahay they, we, you, waxa aad ku daraysaa were. Tusaale ahaan, I was sick yesterday. They were sick yesterday.
For the negative sentence, it's very simple. It's the exact same, except after you say was or were, you will add the word not to it. That's the only difference. So for example, I was not sick yesterday. They were not sick last week. And you're able to actually combine the word was and not and just say wasn't. And you're able to combine the word were and not, and you can say weren't. So they weren't sick last week, or I wasn't sick last week. So it's the exact same as positive. Just after was or were, you will be adding the word not.
Sentence-ka marka uu yahay negative, waxa aad ku daraysaa not, taas oo dhacaysa was iyo were dabadooda. Was marka lagu daro not waxaad odhan kartaa wasn't, were marka lagu daro not waxaad odhan kartaa weren't. Tusaale ahaan, I wasn't sick yesterday, they weren't sick last week.
For the question, it is actually very simple. In the last example, we've seen that it was subject and then was or were. When it comes to the question, was or were will be before the subject. So that's the only difference. Was, the word was or the word were will be before the subject. For positive and negative, the subject was before, was or were. So as an example, were you sick yesterday? I was sick yesterday. This was positive. So you see in the positive sentence, I was sick yesterday. Now in the question, we just follow were or was before the subject. Were you sick yesterday? Were they sick last week? Was I sick yesterday? I was sick yesterday. Was I sick yesterday? It's just switches.
Sentence-ka marka uu yahay question, waxaad subject-ka ka horreysiinaysaa was ama were. Tusaale ahaan, were you sick yesterday? Were they sick last week?
The second subcategory is whenever you're dealing with any other verb that is not to be. So any other verb that is not to be, how will you make a positive, negative, or question?
Qaybta labaad, qaacido. Verb kasta oo aan ahayn verb to be.
Sentence. Very simple. You will just have the subject and you will add the past simple verb afterwards. The past verb afterwards you will add after the subject. So for example, the subject is she. All you have to do is just add the past form of the verb afterwards. She went. Went is the past verb. She went shopping last month. We got up late yesterday. So only those two components. Subject plus past verb.
Sentence-ka marka uu yahay positive, waxa aad ku daraysaa subject-ka oo loo geeyay past verb. Tusaale ahaan, she went shopping last month.
The negative sentence, exact same, except before the verb, you will add the word did not. So, to go through an example, the subject will use the same subject, she. She did not go shopping last month. She went shopping last month. This was positive. She did not go shopping last month. All we did was added did not. Another example, we did not get up late yesterday. We got up late yesterday. This is positive. We did not get up late yesterday. So the word did not just comes before the verb. Negative.
Sentence-ka marka uu yahay negative, waxa aad ku daraysaa did not after the subject. Tusaale ahaan, she did not go shopping last week.
For a question, the word did will come before the subject. Same thing as the last subcategory. You're just going to switch the subject and the word did. So for example, did she go shopping last month? Did you get up late yesterday? This is an example of a question.
Marka uu yahay question, subject-ka waxa aad ka horreysiinaysaa did. Tusaale ahaan, did she go shopping last month?
In this lesson, we covered the three categories: usage, key signals, keywords or signal words, and the format of the past simple tense. We will conclude our class here today. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.